Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Business podcast. I'm your host, Roy. Of course, we are the podcast that brings you a wide variety of guests to talk about a diverse set of topics. We want to help our solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and small businesses be successful, maybe give you something new to think about, or if you've got something that you'd like to work on, maybe present a professional that can help you out. So today is no different. We have Elizabeth Pampalone with us. She is an author, international speaker, successful entrepreneur, and expert marketer with over 20 years of experience. Her innovative approach helps overwhelmed business owners and burnt out nonprofit directors to achieve success and freedom throughout the power of absolute marketing. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I had to snicker at the burnout because that's, sometimes we all fall into that. It's like there's just never enough hours, never enough hours in a day to get the things done we need to do, much less the things that we want to do. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get here? How'd you find yourself in this marketing space?
Well, I actually started about 15 years ago as an entrepreneur. I graduated with a degree in programming, was a
Oh,
software developer for about 8 months.
oh, wow.
Ended up getting married in the middle of all that. And then my husband left me after about 3 months of marriage. So I had to move back in with my parents. I lost everything that I had worked towards, and I couldn't hold my software job. It was too stressful for me.
Yeah.
So I ended up moving to Florida with my parents, which they were all moving right when all this happened.
Oh
So
my
I moved
gosh.
to Florida and I started a business because at that time it was during the recession and there weren't really that many jobs I was qualified to do. And the people that did have jobs, I mean, they were holding on to them. So no one was
Yeah.
really moving around a lot. And so I just decided, you know what, I'm going to start something. And I started a computer repair company. And then I started a training company for small businesses, my marketing agency, which I still have today. And I also had a networking company as well.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, it's sad you had to go through that, but as you came through it, it sounds like you came through it on the other end. And I think that that kind of mirrors some things that may be going on in today's time, with the COVID and the pandemic, is a lot of people, maybe they didn't set out to be business owners, but now all of a sudden, they had to be in business for themselves to just survive. And so then the next thing is, when jobs open up, do we go back to work? Do we stay and try to grow this business? So I think that will be, I think you will be insightful into helping figure out, how do we do that? How do we grow our business? And that, part of it too is we need to grow responsibly, because as we've talked about some previously, is that we actually can outgrow ourselves. Not having business is not the only way to go out of business, but sometimes I've seen instances of people that have had extremely nice growth, but they just couldn't handle it. Customers got upset, and then there we go. So anyway, we'll just talk about that. But so what really attracted you to the marketing end?
Well, I had always been kind of a creative in that way. And the reason I even got into web programming as a kid was I started with HTML at 14. So I was building websites, on our
Okay.
computer locally and trying to do little things for myself. And then I started working at 16 with some small business owners locally in my area. And my mom would drive me to their house and I would work at their home office. And I started to realize that I had this like bent for marketing as well, because I would go to help them with something, menial type tasks, the filling bags or create, filling orders or whatever. And then I would realize, well, there's no more efficient way to do this. And why aren't we marketing this way? And why aren't we telling people about that? And so I started to share these ideas and people started to kind of pick up those things up. And so I knew I had that in me and I knew I liked to do that. My mom was also an entrepreneur when I was growing up. So I was very much familiar with, going to shows and selling and things like that.
Okay.
And so I liked that part of it. But when I was looking at actually going to college, I thought, well, what's going to pay me the most money?
Right,
And of
right.
course, programming was a little bit higher than a designer salary at that point. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go with this skill and I can always add the other skill later, right? I can always just pick that up as I go. And what ended up happening is when I started my own business, I had to do all of it myself. I had to program the site, I had to design the site, the graphics, everything. And so I really kind of learned on myself And I developed a lot of formulas for myself that I ended up using in my agency about 4 years ago, when I basically cleared my agency and just started completely over, and started with Absolute Marketing, which is the system that I created, back in the day for myself.
Okay, great. So where are we, things have changed a little bit, especially from the days of, hard coding websites. Some of us, we use the WordPress to kind of so we don't have to learn all of that. Still, it's helpful. But what are some things that you've seen that have changed? I know the space, all spaces, they've just gotten so much more noisier. And I guess, that's kind of the question I've been trying to get to a lot is, what's making people stand out today? And then, of course, compounding that, I think this last year, forcing people to stay home a lot, I feel like that noise has probably just even gotten higher.
It has, it really has. But one of the things that I do with our strategies, and this is something that I did for myself for the first 10, 12 years of my agency and my businesses, was I actually developed these formulas that cut through that and
Okay.
get to your right customer.
Okay.
And so with my customers, I'm actually doing a talk in a couple weeks on how COVID has changed marketing. And my answer to that, and I'll give you a sneak preview, is going to be it hasn't.
Yeah.
I think there are these core things that people were not really doing before. They
Yeah.
were kind of ignoring, they were pushing to the side because they weren't flashy enough or exciting enough. And they
Right.
were trying to do all this stuff, which created all that noise. But really, the people who continue to do real marketing, what I call real marketing, stable marketing,
Right.
that those people are the ones who didn't have to change a thing. They actually were able to just keep going and actually grow even some in during COVID and during the end of last year. And it's funny because some of my clients were a little upset that they didn't get the second round or the of PPP because they had grown.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
like, well, man, but in a way it was good, but also in a way it was kind of bad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so I think that that's one of the things. And I say that, marketing really has not changed because everything goes back to the psychology of why people buy things. And I
Okay.
think if you just look at that for whatever current age you're in, then you're going to have the right strategy, because it's about how do people buy things? Why do they buy things? And then how do I not even convince, but persuade someone that
Right.
what I'm selling is better? And I think that a lot of that goes to your brand and your message, and having a good landing space where people can actually land and sit. So you mentioned, WordPress. No, you don't have to really know how to code to do a lot of these sites anymore. But what I find is that people who are inexperienced with websites, they'll get in, they'll build a website, then they'll do tons of social media marketing, they'll do tons of ads, they'll pay a ton of money on that social side of it, but their website is just killing them. It is
Right.
falling so flat that when someone goes to that ad, they pay for that ad, they're doing all these things that they're paying for. And then their client or their new customer comes to their website where the sale is actually happening. The sale doesn't happen on social media,
Yeah.
it's happening on the website. Then it fails them. And then they wonder, well, why isn't my social media working? No, it's probably because your website or your brand,
Yeah.
even further back, is not even working. So I think a lot of people kind of put the blame on the wrong party in some of those instances. And so we really have to look at, the 5 pieces of marketing and really say, where am I strong and where am I weak? And I think having someone from the outside look at that, doing some
Yeah.
kind of audit, I do audits all the time,
Okay.
really is helpful to give you that real perspective of, is my brand good? Is my website strong enough? Then is my social media working correctly for me? Is my email marketing working correctly? And is my blogging, actually aiding and connecting all these pieces?
Yeah, and I don't think you can stress that audit enough because it's I'll throw myself under the bus and say, we get wrapped up in what we do or what we know that
Hmm.
sometimes we don't see. It's just we don't know what we don't know, and somebody may be like, hey, and a good example is, used 2 years ago, I did these interviews on Skype, and then it got to be so difficult for us to connect that we'd spend 30 minutes getting a connection. Then everybody's like, huh, I'm worn out. I can't even do an interview. So quit doing them, just went audio for a while. And then, with the resurgence of Zoom, uh, I never really thought about it, but, I had a guest on, we were talking and he's like, putting these episodes up on Zoom. I'm like, that's something I knew didn't think about it. So that's the good thing about an audit. It can walk you down some paths that you never really thought about, or that you maybe didn't realize how important that was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love to do these because, like even when I speak, I'll do a website talk or a branding talk, and I'll spend the last 30 minutes of the talk pulling up websites and going through them and tearing their first page apart, because that's the thing that's going to help them. It's not going to help them for me to say, "Oh, your website's beautiful. Good job. Okay, moving to the next one." Like I am there to Gordon Ramsay it, right? I got
Right.
tear it apart, tell you all the things that are wrong, tell you the good pieces, the good bits, but also say, look, this is why you're not gaining the traction. This is why you're not getting the sales or the calls or whatever it is you're trying to attract
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and we can probably even take a step further back removed from that and talk about branding for just a minute, because it's important to really think that through. And uh, I know we can change on a dime. Anybody can throw any logo up at any time, but I always feel like personally it's good to give that some thought prior to your launch, just for the consistency factor. But I'll get your opinion on that, and then also really sitting down and thinking about because I've heard a lot of different sayings. Your brand is, what people think about you or say about you when you're not around. But, really thinking about who you are, what are you selling, your product, your service, giving all these things some thought. And again, hiring an expert, I think, like yourself, to walk us through this things that we need to think about. But anyway, I'll let you comment on the branding aspect.
Yeah, branding is the most important piece. I actually use it as the first day of my 5-day system. So we do branding in a day, website in a day, 12 months of social media in a day, 12 months of blogging in a day, and 12 months of email marketing in a day. So we've got all that stuff to do, but I'm like, no, we're spending an entire day just on branding
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's that important.
It is. And it's like, coming up, talking to a gentleman the other day about logos and how they, can actually invoke thought. And he had a really cool one
Yeah.
that you could look at it a few different ways. So, coming up with clever, I think it just makes people remember you. And then, of course, the iconic brands that we know today, their logo really precedes them.
And the branding is, the logo is a piece of that. So I think the brand is a multifaceted item or
Right.
asset. And your logo is just that visual representation of your brand.
Exactly.
And I like that idea that your logo provokes thought. I think it even provokes emotion. And when I see a certain color on a logo, when I see a certain font, I'm going to feel a certain way about a brand, regardless of what I know about them. If I know anything different about them, it doesn't matter. I'm going to feel a certain way.
Right.
And so, if I look at, there's a brand here locally, I'm not sure if it's national or not, but it's 511 Tactical or something like that. And it's the word tactical is in the name. So that's one thing. But their colors are orange and black, and the font is very heavy and bold, almost like what you'd see, on like a typewriter type of font. And it's just really heavy, really thick, and very bright. And it reminds me, and when you say tactical, I'm thinking, okay, guns and, hunting equipment and things like that. And that's what they sell. And that's great. But at the same time, I get this sense of, this masculine sense from that brand in general. Like that just hits you, right?
Right.
Like the orange and the big numbers and everything. And so
Yeah.
then when you look at something like La Petite Paris Cafe, and their font is scripty and it's light blue and everything looks very feminine. There's a chandelier as their logo. Like it's what you would think a Paris cafe would look like. And it gives you that feeling, and you almost hear the music in your head, right? Like it's all there. You can smell the croissants. Like, so even the name itself, the words evoke some kind of emotion or some kind of memory, but also the colors and that feeling of it. Now, if the Petit Paris had their font in orange and it was bold and typewriter looking, and I wouldn't think the same thing about them. I wouldn't have that feeling initially. And
Yeah.
so I feel like that branding, and especially the visual representation of that, is really important to get that right. And I see so many brands, I'll actually turn away companies that do not have it right yet. I'll say either work with me and we'll get it right, or you need to go away and fix it and make it right before we can move forward, because your website is then built on that. Your social media is built on that. And when you have that message that goes with the visual representation, you know who you are, what you do, and who you're sharing it with. If you have all those pieces, that is just like a magic combination. So then when you go to do that website, that's easy. Like that just pops right off the page. You don't have to think about it. When you go to share stuff on social, you're not wondering, what do I share? When do I share it? You just know because it all comes from that brand.
Yeah. No, and you're right about the different colors, the font, just sometimes that messaging, it just gives you a feel. And people like to do business with people they feel comfortable with, people they like. And so even if you were in the market, if you felt it was just too in your face and too masculine, it may actually steer you to go somewhere else. So that's something else you brought up though too that's interesting is the name of the business. And the only reason I bring that up is because a lot of times professional solopreneurs, they just work under their own name, which it's not, I guess, in my opinion, it's not a problem. But I think that we have to think about the end game is that if we ever want to sell that business, if we ever want to, maybe even step back and have somebody kind of be the front, it's what I have personally ran into. I'll just say this is a personal opinion that people always, if you're going under Elizabeth, people want to speak to Elizabeth because that's the name of your business. And if I have to speak with Amy or Joanne or anybody else, I'm not speaking to Elizabeth, to the business person. So speak to the name, and then kind of that working under somebody's personal name versus developing an actual name for a company.
Well, I had many names in the beginning of my company. I could not settle on one. And I actually ended up working with a brander myself because I was that scattered on my own business. And this was for my computer repair company. So this wasn't even this before I even kind of started my agency. And I had just struggled so much. I was EH Technologies. I just had all these weird names. E3 Technologies. I was all these things. And then when I worked with the brander, she really asked me a lot of questions, which I ask my clients today. I've incorporated a lot of those things into my system that provoked me to actually think about my brand in a personal and a business way. So it wasn't that I was going to use my name particularly, but I wanted to be enough of me in it because I was the face. I was the only one out there. And then what ended up happening was a good thing because I named my company the Jack's Computer Chick. She said, and this is one of the things she just instilled in me initially was you have to say who you are, what you do. And for me, it was a regional thing. So I really could only go so far in a day. So I had to say, I'm in Jacksonville. It wasn't something I could really do remotely. And so Jax, I had to be in there, or the Jacksonville name. I was the computer person. And a lot of my clients called me that computer girl. And so I thought, okay, we're just going to name it the Chick because it sounds different. Nobody else has that name. And there was actually another company in town called the Jack's Computer Guys. And so I had to differentiate, right? Had to be the other one. And when I started that company, I didn't think it would be anything but me. I didn't think it was going to go anything beyond that. I ended up getting remarried, and my husband ended up coming to work for me after we were married for 2 years. So this was our only business, our only income. And because he did that, and he said he worked for the chick. That's what he would say. I worked for the chick. And so it was like this fun little thing, and everyone knew he was my husband. And they were more comfortable because he was kind of a part of me in a way, an extension of me.
Yeah.
And then we ended up hiring another woman technician as well. And then also another male technician. So we had all these people and they just worked for the company name. It was Jack's Computer Chick. That's who they worked for. And so it didn't really matter who was in it or not, but that was the name of the company. And it worked out really well because we ended up selling the company to one of our employees. But then when I branded my agency, I was just Elizabeth Pampalone for the longest time. It was the Elizabeth Pampalone. You just go to my website, everything was there. And what I found was that I knew I wanted to bring in more people eventually. I knew I wanted it to move and grow and all that kind of stuff. And I was not there yet with the name. I still couldn't figure that out. Again, when it's for yourself, it's a lot harder.
Right.
And so I worked with a coach and she was helping me with speaking engagements actually. And when I started working with her, she started to draw out of me this offer that I had, these 5 days that I had that I was doing. I just hadn't put it all together. And that's what you see today as absolute marketing. And that's when 4 years ago, I just was like, you know what? I just need to do this. This is the only thing that really is the most impactful thing that I'm doing. It's the most helpful thing. And it's also the most exciting and fun thing that I get to do. So that's when Absolute
Yeah.
Marketing was born, because I want this system to be like the only thing you need. It's the absolute thing. That's it.
Right.
And
Right.
so using that word, going through that process that I used with my first branding person I worked with, going through that same process again for myself, on my own, and finding that word absolute was very important for me. The word marketing can be thrown to anything, right? You can attach it to anything almost, but I knew it needed to say marketing, but it had to have something else to it. And so using that specific word was important. And that's built an entire, I would say, little empire, if you will, of products and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But starting with that brand is what got me to this place where we have a membership, we have products, we have services, we have coaching, we have all these things, speaking engagements. But if I hadn't started with that brand, I
Yeah.
would not have all these other things that were able to easily flow out of it and become successful.
Yeah, and that is awesome because it is such a nice umbrella that you can put a lot of things under it and still stay true to, your mission. And I think you also brought up something else, is that collaborative piece is it's invaluable, especially when you're brainstorming things like names or that creative. For me, I'm the non-creative guy. So, numbers in a spreadsheet, I'm all good with that. But when we start talking about this creative stuff, it's like, it's nice to sit down and bounce that off of people, because sometimes we can be too close if it's our own,
Mhm.
and just having that output from somebody outside the organization, very beneficial.
I always say even coaches need coaches, and in this case, even branders need branders. So
Exactly. Let's talk about something else that you talked about for just a minute, is our customer. I think it's important to, at some point, sometimes we start out maybe a side hustle doing this and that, but when we want to get serious and we want to really focus, talk about building our consumer avatar or our consumer model for just a minute, because I think it's important to, before we can really build a website and put words on it, before we can reach out on social media, we really need to know, who are we trying to reach and what is our message to them.
that is absolutely correct. And that's why when I start with the brand, it's those three things. Who are you? What do you do? And who are you sharing it with? And if you have those three things down, the rest of it all comes actually really easily. And even though you might think those other things are hard, the website, social, whatever, it's actually a lot easier if you have a good brand. So now that who you are, you've got that name, you might even have done the logo, you're kind of putting all that together. That message needs to go to someone. And I always look at what people are doing. And a lot of times, no one, I don't really know, say no one, but very few people will start a business just to start a business of something they have no idea about, right? They're not just going
Right,
to
right.
start a business and go, I've never owned a restaurant and I really don't like to eat out. But guess what? I'm going to start a restaurant, right? They're going to start a restaurant because people told them their food is amazing. They should definitely be selling this. And they've had this encouragement, but they've also had these customers, right? These free customers, even if that's the case, or if someone's been starting a coaching, job or, business, or they're starting, they're going to be a plumber. It doesn't matter what it is you're going into. You've had customers, could be your mom, could be your sister, could be your friends. It doesn't matter, because you've helped someone with something, and that's how you know you're good at it. And so once you've kind of decided what that is, and you know what the thing is you're actually going to be doing for people, then just look back at all those people you had as customers, who were your, free customers, those initial people who told you you were good at something, and say, okay, who are they? And why did it work so well with them? Was it because they were at a certain stage in life? Was it because they were male or female? Was it because, because if you're going to go into custom brassieres, you don't want to be working with a lot of men, probably. It's not going to be your main clientele, right? So you're going to go with that women population. So those kinds of things, you have to know who were those customers that you've already worked with, you've already had success with, even if it was just that they said, oh my gosh, your food is amazing. Okay, those are people that like Asian food. There are people who like Thai. There are people who like Mexican. There are people who like Italian. Whatever that thing is, even if your food is kind of off of those things, or you're not pigeonholing into one, right? But all these people also liked Mexican food, or all these people also liked Italian food. Then you're going to say, okay, now I'm going to need to go after people who like Italian food because these people find it really similar and they really like it, or whatever the answer is. So you want to go after the people you've already actually worked with that has been successful, or people who've told you this is the thing you're good at. And
Okay.
that's a really great way to start. Then you can start to branch out from there. And as you get more and more customers, you'll find customers that you go, I don't want to work with them again. I don't want to work with a client like that again. And you can really say, was it a certain stage of life? Were they not ready? Did they not have the finances? Whatever was that case that made it difficult to work with that person, they should be at the bottom of the list of people you say yes to. Obviously, we all say yes to people we shouldn't, because we need to at some points in our lives and our businesses. But at the same time, that should be at that low end of, okay, this is the low hanging fruit. If I really got to do it, I can, but it's difficult, right? So then we pick that high performing person that we are like, these are my favorite people. I have to work with this person again.
Yeah, and I just jot down. You mentioned, basically, unfortunately, as professionals, sometimes we have to fire clients, and I think you bring up a good point. Is that you really have to think about that person you want to work with and evaluate them, because sometimes they can be such a drain on your resources or your time or just your emotions that it's like whatever they're paying, it's so not worth it. So, give that some thought. And, like you said in the beginning, sometimes we can't be as picky as we would like, but at some point it is a much better path to pick your customer and work with people that you really, really want to. The outcomes will be better, because unfortunately sometimes the people that are difficult to work with, they just seem like they hang around for way extended periods where, when the job ends or when it should be over with, it's like you're still dealing with that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've actually had to do this year, which
Yeah.
was not fun.
Yeah.
But I had a 5-figure job that came along. It was, on the heels of the pandemic. I'm thinking, okay, this will be good. We can get ahead of ourselves a little and, move forward. And it was a great opportunity. It was not the type of client I like to work with. They had a lot of issues that I don't usually deal with. I can deal with them, very equipped to do it, but don't like to. It's
Right.
not part of my wheelhouse anymore.
Right.
And I told them yes. I did a 5-day session with them. We only completed 4 days because it ended up, we were supposed to do 1 day on each thing, just like, our system works. We ended up
Right.
spending 4 days on their website because it was not one that I typically take on. And they had very specific ideas that were not accomplishable the way that they had things set up. And I tried to explain that. It was just one of those things where you're just like, why did I do this to myself? And why did I do this to them? Why didn't I just tell them
Exactly.
no and make it better for everybody? And
Yeah.
so I ended up telling them at day 4, I was like, you know what? I have to leave. I can't even do day 5. I'm going to refund you, the days that we didn't do, but I can't do it because I'm not helping you. I
Yeah.
can't in good conscience take more of your money after I've tried and tried and tried
Yeah.
and tried. It's not going to be what you need it to be. And so I gave them
Yeah.
some instructions on like, try these things. Once you get to this point, we can revisit all this. And they're still not quite there yet, but they're getting there. But it was one of those things that was really hard for me to say, and this is an ego thing too. As an entrepreneur, you can't fix everyone.
Exactly.
You can't fix everything. And having, hindsight, saying no initially, saying no upfront would have been better. And I had a client come along a couple of weeks ago, another very large, job, really great info, just great stuff. Like just, oh, this is going to be amazing. And I said no because their brand wasn't right and they didn't want to do the brand with us. And I said, you got to fix the brand. When you fix it, come back. And they haven't come
Right.
back yet, but I have hope for them. But at the same time, I didn't let them down or myself down because I knew the limitations of how far I'm willing to go in certain circumstances.
Yeah, and it's important that you mesh, just like friends that you go out to eat with. You're going to sit and across the table and try to have a conversation for an hour. You don't want to go out with somebody that's confrontational or that
Right.
it's going to be a bad time. And so it's the same thing with picking our customers. I think is you know they need to work with somebody that they like and trust as well as we do, because especially in the marketing, it's like you can tell me all the right stuff. If I don't take your word and I don't implement it, then I'm going to say, well, that was a really bad experience. None of this stuff is work. Well,
Right.
it's not because of the information given, it's because of the way it was carried out. So there's
Yeah.
just so much to wrap around that for sure. But you bring up a good point I wanted to talk about for just a minute. You have systemized your approach, and you told us about the 5-day approach. But let's talk about the marketing aspect of a systemized approach, and also the ease of you explaining it to just let's just talk about the whole systemization for just a minute.
Yeah. So when I was doing websites and social media and all that stuff, I had my agency for a couple of years, and I was still running my computer repair company. Everything was kind of rolling together. And then I just got to a point where I was burnt out. I was doing these websites for 30 days, 60 days, 3 months. And I had clients that were coming to me, their sites hadn't been done by other designers for a year. And but the problem was the clients.
Yeah.
They were taking so long to get us everything that I would sit there for 30 days and I would call them and email them and let's meet and let's, trying to get them on board. And they were like, oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so busy. And then on day 29 of 30, my inbox would be flooded with their information. I would
Right.
sit there and drop everything I was doing, cancel all my appointments, and just work on that because I could only take 2 clients at a time. And I had 2 more clients coming in the next day to start the process all over again. And
Yeah.
so this was my cycle for like about a year to 2 years. It was insane. I was going mental. And so I said, you know what? I am going to sit down because I was basically building websites in a day. I said, I'm starting over. I took everything off my website and I put up website in a day, other in a day products available upon request. And I put a flat rate. It's the one day you sit down with me. We do all of this stuff in person, back and forth, one-on-one. You write, I design. That's how it'll work. And we just put it together. And when you leave, your website is done and you don't have to talk to me again if you don't want to. And once I did that, I got my first client with that. I took everything else off. No other stuff was on my website. I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
And the first client said, oh, well, I need a brand too. I was like, great, we can do that in a day. I'd never done that before. I was like, I'm sure I can make that work. And then she said, I need social media also. And I was like, great, let's do 12 months at a time. And she's like, sounds good. I'd never done those 2 things before, but I knew in my mind a plan of action. I was like, let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, I'll refund her some money or something. Yeah. It was the most amazing 3 days I'd ever had. The client was amazingly happy. I was amazingly happy. She is still my client today. We've gone through this process several times since she signed on with me. And it's just been amazing. Like that was just the first thing. I was like, this is what I need to do. And so from then on, I started to develop, what does every business need? They need a brand. They need a website. Social media is a must in this day and age, unfortunately. Blogging is really helpful for SEO. Let's just do that instead of worrying about all this SEO stuff that's almost nonsensical. And then let's just email market because that just gets to our direct customers, much easier than social media. It gets them right into their inbox. Right. So, and I'd had a lot of success with email marketing as well. So I was like, okay, these are the 5 things you need. And then I started to say, well, there's a few alternates. Some people need memberships. We do those in a day. Some people need a podcast. We help develop those in a day. And then some people just need help with just everything, right? They're just a mess. They just need somebody to come in, sort out their mess. Yeah. And we call that our a la carte day. So really those 5 things are our pillars, but then there's those 3 alternates for people who need that. And so it's a system and it works for every single business that's tried it that I've worked with. Yeah. And there are businesses I know it won't work for. I turn them away. I say, go to this person, go to that person. They'll do much better job for you. Yeah. But the people that I know it will work for, products, services, coaches, doctors, lawyers, I mean, just tons of different industries. They are the ones that they can then pick and choose. We can say, okay, do you need a membership? Let's replace that with this or whatnot. So it's a really great system. And it is kind of interchangeable pieces, kind of feel like it's like Lego blocks. You're building something up for them. But yeah, it's been a really great system to use for myself because I used it on myself first and I knew it worked. And then to build it out for my clients as well.
Yeah. And it makes it, I look at it from your perspective, it makes it easier because you have this defined list that, of expectations, but then also it makes it easier to, I think, to market it to your prospects because they know exactly what they're getting. It's not an open, sometimes when you come to professional services, it's like, hey, I'm going to do your marketing for you. And, you think, so what does that actually mean? Is that just like, I just pass you a blank check and you fill it in when you get, when
Right.
you're done and you're tired? But this has, you have these set expectations. And the other part I like about it is that set time limit that, typically, especially if you work with smaller businesses, professionals, entrepreneurs, it's like, they're busy with their thing during the day. This is usually a night thing or a weekend thing that they're trying to get you information. And, you're so right. It's like, Friday at 4:30, it's like everybody's hitting the send button, trying to get stuff off of their desk and off of their plate. And, you've been waiting for a week or two for this information. And now, it just can mess your schedule up going forward. So I think that's one thing I really love about this is that you systematized it. And I think there's a lot of other businesses that can really look at that model to help themselves as well.
I've seen a lot of companies, because they've come and done stuff with me,
Mhm.
they've kind of adopted that in their own businesses in different ways. I have
Right.
a photographer that I've worked with, and she does mini headshot day.
Yeah.
And it's a 1 hour session. You get professional hair and makeup. It's a very much reduced rate, but she gets like 5 or 10 people in one day.
Yeah.
And she's just like, do, 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 do. Her makeup person is there all day. Her hair person is there all day. She's there all day. She
Yeah.
runs through everything, and you get 2 photos. For some people, that's plenty. They don't need anything else, but
Right.
she takes more than that. So then you have the opportunity to buy more at the end of the session. So I think it's those kind of things where you can like systematize it, get more people in at a time, or get that one big job done quicker or more efficiently by actually condensing it down. I'm a big believer in Parkinson's law, which is that if you have an amount of time and you have a task, that task will fill the time that is given. So if
Correct.
you say, oh, I've got an hour, I can do the dishes in a little bit, it's going to take you a whole hour to do those dishes, right?
Yeah.
Because you
Right.
got a whole hour to fill. So
Yeah.
the time will fill it, or the task will fill it. So, if we say we've got a month to do a website, it's going to take us 30 days. It's not going to take us a day less. But if we say we have 8 hours to build a website, we have to hustle. We have to make it happen, because that's not a lot of time. But at the same time, I've done this so much, like I know it's possible,
Yeah.
but people do see it as, this is my time to get this done and stop the procrastination, which is usually what people end up doing with those things.
Right. Right. Yeah. And you can just sit down and go through that checklist and knock it out for them too, which is nice. Well, what is a tool that you use, either a tool or a habit? What is something that you use in your daily life, professional or personal, that really adds a lot of value?
Well, personally and professionally, when I read the book Profit First, that changed my business and my personal life.
Okay.
It was like about 4 years ago. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was making over 6 figures, and I was going, wait a minute, where's all this money going? And a lot of it was going back into the business. I calculated about 65% was going back into the business.
Mhm.
And while we all know that, it takes money to make money, right? But
Right.
at the same time, a lot of that was unnecessary. And once I read Profit First and I started implementing that into my business finances, it made so much sense. It was so amazing, because it didn't matter if you had a steady income or an unstable income, which is mine was mostly unstable,
Right.
then it didn't matter. It always worked. And so it took me about 3 months to kind of, get into it and
Right. Right.
actually figure it out. It was a little painful at first, but it took me 3 months to get to the targeted allocations he talks about. And once I got there, I have not had to worry about taxes. I have not had to worry about paychecks. I have not had to worry about paying employees. All of the money I needed was always there. Even if something unexpected came up, there was money there. And I've used that in my personal life as well, in that type of a system and that idea in my personal life.
Yeah.
And it just changed everything for me, to the point of reducing my stress to a level that was, I had not seen in years, probably a decade at that point. And also, it allowed me to be more creative in my business.
Yeah.
So instead of worrying about the money so much and worrying about the clients so much and being so focused on that piece of it, because I felt like I was always behind,
Yeah.
now my business was not suffering creatively or intelligently, intuitively, whatever, because I wasn't worried about those things. I knew they were taken care of. I knew the money was coming in and I knew what I had to do to make it. And everything just seemed to fit better. And so now in my business, I wasn't that desperation person going, you got to buy from me right now.
Yeah.
I knew that next time or whatever, the next person coming along, that would work. And I also knew that I needed XYZ for the month or XYZ for the year. I had more clear goals rather than just going, I just got to make it this month. I can't worry about a goal. I'm worried
Yeah.
about this month, or this week. And so it really freed me up. And I can't even tell you how much that freed me up mentally, because then once I started looking at my personal life and my business practice in a different way rather than through this money lens, because the money was kind of taken care of in a way, then I started to look at it in the sense of minimalism, tech minimalism, actual like family minimalism. And then I started to declutter all of our stuff. I mean, I got rid of 50% of the things in our house.
Yeah.
And that even had more of an impact on my mental capacity, ability, my mood, everything. And so even though these things aren't marketing related, they helped my business and in my personal life so much
Yeah.
that honestly, I don't know if my business would have survived COVID if I had not found those two things.
Well, that's awesome. I'll have to check that out. And because it's, and it doesn't matter what business, but I think it's worse when you're in a creative business is that stress. And when you're worried about all that other stuff, for me personally, it's just hard for that creativeness to flow. I mean, we have to have that open mind. And, the other thing, just talk about for a minute is that downsizing, after the kids are grown and gone, a couple years ago, we downsized tremendously. I mean, like very minimalistic, and it's been the most freeing thing because I don't just have junk to worry about or stuff that needs to do. We can focus on our business, what we enjoy doing, and then also have that free time. So definitely, there's the balance. We talk about the work-life balance. Sometimes it can mean other things like, if stuff is stressing us out in our personal life, then that definitely carries over into business and vice versa. So
Yeah, and I've heard this idea of the silent to-do list, that the more things you have, the more they silently speak to you. Like, let's say there's this pen you really like, and you need to get a new ink cartridge for it, and you go to pick it up every time, but oh, there's no ink in it. And then it tells you, you got to buy ink for me. You got to go to Staples. You're right. And so then you've got this like silent to-do list from this one item that is it worth you keeping this
right.
one item, because then there's this other thing you have to do with it. And I'm the worst plant lady in the world. A lot of people think that minimalism equals plantism, and it does not. And so I actually go to IKEA and I buy the fake plants, and I have them all around my house, and it looks great and it looks like I have a lot of plants, but I don't have to look at it every time and go, oh man, I gotta water that.
Right, exactly.
So it's just one of those things that once you find that happy medium for yourself, that but having less, it does impact your business and your personal life, and does give you that extra free time, which does really, really help so that you can actually get things done, like, the laundry and stuff.
Exactly. Right. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know we've hit on all the points, but tell us about absolute marketing. Tell us about your, I guess there's now like 7, or we've got the 5 basics and then a couple different add-ons, but tell us about the modules that you have. And then also tell people, who is your target client to work with, what you can do for them, and of course, how can they reach out and get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I love working with people who are at that overwhelmed point. They're like, I've tried doing social media. I always fall off the wagon. I start in January. I'm good for February. And then March, it's done. I'm gone. I'm busier. I have things I'm doing. And then they don't market themselves. And then they find July, August, maybe even September, business starts to wane. They don't know why. They're trying to scramble. Then they feel like they're more busy scrambling just to get people in the door. And so that is the person who's just like, I don't have time for it. I know I need to do it. That
Right.
combination is perfect for this system. And even if you have someone who's helping you in marketing in-house, or even if you don't, those people can come along if you have them with you, or if you have a helper you're using, or VA or whatever. And if not, we can knock this out with just 2 people on, from our team. So you and one of our team members, and that's it. That's the minimum amount we need. And that's a really fun day. My team and I, we fly to locations and visit. We have offices all over the country, and we'll visit them at our office in that location, or they can come to Florida and have fun here in the sun. And so then come to our office, and we have people do that all the time. So that's one option. But the 5 days is branding, to get your logo, your message, the person you're trying to reach. Who are you? What are you doing? Who are you sharing it with? That name, get that name right. All those pieces that go with that brand. And I even like to write an ebook on day one, just because, why not throw that in? More to do, right?
Yeah.
And then day 2, we build the entire website. And when you leave the end of that day 2, it's live, it's up, it's running, it's complete. And then day 3, we build 12 months of social media posts. And this is designed, written, scheduled. This is not a plan you have to implement. We literally get everything done in that one day. And
Wow.
then day 4 is blogging. Design, write, and schedule 12 months of blog posts. And then day 5 is design, write, and schedule 12 months of email marketing campaigns that go with your email or your blogs and your social and your messaging from all the other days that we put together.
Okay.
So we definitely have a lot of work to do in those 5 days. But if you need a membership, we do those in a day. If you want to start a podcast, we actually get all that up and running in a day and do a couple of episodes. And then we also can do just an a la carte day where you're like, I got a mess. Let's just bounce around and fix a lot of little things here and there. And that's a great day as well, because a lot of people can start with that day and then go, okay, now I know I need these 3 days. Let's knock those out, because sometimes you don't even know where to start if you have too much overwhelm and too much of a mess.
Right.
So those are my ideal clients, just people who are just stuck. They're just overwhelmed. They don't know how they're going to get it all done. This can really be that helping hand. And this gives you that 24/7 marketing wheel that's just running in the background for you. That's done. You don't have to touch it for a whole year. Will you add stuff to your marketing? Of course you will. Will things come up that you'll want to say? Of course. When my clients were going through COVID, they did not change their marketing that we did for them the previous, for the year. They left it. They added to it, because of course with social media, the more the merrier, right?
Right.
But they added to it, but they didn't have to remove anything unless it was an event that was canceled. Those are like the only things we really had to remove. So it was a great way to get them something out there that during COVID, they were working on. How do we move forward? How do we pivot? How do we do all these things? They didn't want to have to be worrying about, and how do we put out social media? And how do we do emails right now? All that was running for them. And even for myself, I was in the same boat with everybody else, and my marketing was running, my emails were running. I didn't have to worry about those so much unless it had to do with some event or something that got canceled. So that's a great way to start off, even in the middle of a year, the second quarter. It doesn't matter. You can start anytime and go for an entire 12-month period. And they can visit my website is getabsolutemarketing.com, and you can find all the information there, all the pricing. If you have questions, you can email me through there. And also you can book a call, because I like to talk people through this. It's not something that's for everyone, but if it is for someone, I like to also know which days do they really need. Some people don't need all 5, and that's cool too, because we can get more done on the other things. But then I also have 2 free things that I wanted to share. One is the Pro Toolkit. And all the stuff I use, every email marketing platform, I have one that I really love. My social platforms, I have one of those that I really love, a scheduler that's great. All these different things that I use for my business, my invoicing, all the stuff that works together that just flows really well and is also inexpensive or on that more, cheaper side or free side. Then I put all those tools into a toolkit. And you can get that for free at the top of my website. And then at the bottom of my website, you can actually join my membership, where if you have marketing questions, you can ask them. I do trainings, there's guest experts, there's tons of videos. I do special offers to my members, and so it's all free. So definitely have, I'd love for people to check that out, and also just come say hi to me either in the membership or let's book a call, and I'd love to talk with them.
All right, great. Well, yeah, that's a lot of great information. The other thing, don't want to, we could talk about this for a couple more hours, but I think that the nice thing is that you're giving this people these tools to, for a year, the blogging, the social media, because uh, what I see too with solopreneurs is that we get into this habit of, I don't have anything to do today, and so market, market, market. Now I need to fulfill, so no market, no market, no market. And then when
Yeah.
that's over, so we get on this roller coaster, and at least having these this laid out for 12 months, it should really equalize everything out and just make it easier on everybody, where it's not like, okay, well, I told you this to do, for the next couple weeks, and then trying to recreate that. So because marketing is, well, we all hope we can send out a message and then we just get flooded with consumers. But the reality is, it's a long term play. We have to stay after it. We have to be consistent in order for it to work as well as we want it to.
Consistency is everything in marketing, and it takes 7 to 10 different things that someone would see before they actually even just remember your name, right? So
Exactly.
they
Exactly.
have to know who you are, and they have to also, I'll tell people this all the time, that when someone goes on social media and they go, oh, Roy, I have to tell you about this thing I saw the other day. Let me see if I can find it. We
Yeah.
don't want them to say that about us, right?
Right.
We want them to say, oh, Roy, Elizabeth posted this thing the other day. Let me show you, because
Yeah.
they know exactly where it is, because the branding on those things on social media, on an email, whatever, was so strong that they were able to connect it back to a person that they exactly knew who posted that thing or sent that thing.
Right.
So we want them to say that about us, but that only comes from consistency, using the same colors, using the same fonts, using the same tone of voice, the same message, day after day after day. So definitely consistency is huge. And this eliminates so much of that, which is why I use it for myself. Cause yeah, I'm not that consistent of a person in that way. So
Yeah.
this is definitely helpful for me as well.
All right. All right. Y'all go out, reach out to Elizabeth. I know she can help you out, put her system to work for you. So thanks again for your time. It's been wonderful talking to you, and hope I'll get you back on here and you can give us some updates and some more good information. All right. That's going to do it for another episode of the Business of Business podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Roy. We are on you can find us at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast.com. We're on all the major social media platforms, as well as the major podcast platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Spotify. If we're not on one that you listen to regularly, reach out. I'd be glad to get us added. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of your business.